everybody. Episode 294 of McRae Live. Woo! What's shaking? What's doing? What's going on, everybody? My name's Dave McRae. Welcome to episode 294. 294 of McRae Live. It's good to see you all here. I hope you're all doing well, and we'll see who rolls on in for this one. This is different. Obviously, I did make a pre-recorded video the other day on this, but I have, some more thoughts on it that I want to sort of get off my chest. And, I just realized I have Roku on in the background. Whatever. I doubt I'll get dinged for that, but you'll just see some nice Roku advertisements on the TV way in the background there. But nonetheless, I kind of have some more thoughts on this, and I thought, why not talk about it? I know it's not horror, and it's probably not going to get a lot of people tuning in, because the second you deviate, really at the end of the day, I'll be honest with you, I probably should start another channel. Well, I don't want to start another channel. What the hell am I saying? I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to do that. But there's some times where I'm just like, I want to talk about that. I have a lot I want to say on that, but unfortunately, because it's not the brand, people are unlikely to tune in, right? And people don't really care. Like, it's funny, if you deviate just a little bit, and I don't mean like a lot, but just a little bit, people, they get their knickers in a twist and they get angry. And if you're not talking Halloween all day, every day, it can get crazy. And, but unfortunately, I have a lot more I want to say on things. And so, the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight was, and I think it's topical. Like, although it's not horror, we're not talking about horror and movies per se. It is entertainment, and it was topical, and it was big, and I do have a lot I want to say on it. And again, I did express a lot of it in the pre-recorded video that I uploaded the other day. But this, I guess, is kind of an addendum to that, and I just kind of want to talk a bit more about it and get your thoughts in real time here in the chat. Just kind of see what you think. Now, I'm going to say this again. I mean, obviously I'm of an age where I grew up with Mike Tyson through his heyday, not just in the 90s, but, in the 80s. And so I remember so this is what's interesting about this is that, you have this character named Jake Paul. And I'm calling him a character because that's what he is. And, I'm old enough to be his father, for God's sake. So, I would have been a young father, but I'm still kind of old enough to be his father. What would have been 10, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it would have been like 18. Would have been 18 when he was born. A young father, but still possible. But here's the thing, is that I didn't really know anything about Jake Paul because that's not my generation. I'm not of the TikTok generation. And so I didn't know who he was until maybe a couple of years ago when he was fighting, I think when he fought like Nate Diaz or something. And then, of course, Anderson Silva. And, there was all this hoopla about this YouTuber. And, and then, of course, Tommy Fury, which is Tyson Fury's brother. And so I just kind of knew him as that guy. And then it was only because of the Mike Tyson fight that I found out that he has his own promotion company, and, he's uber rich because of all the YouTube followers and how he started on Vine. I didn't even know there was anything called Vine. That's how, I guess, out of touch I am. It's no longer there, of course. And so it's taken me a while to catch up and really get a perspective on the whole shebang. Whereas a lot of you, especially if you're of his generation, you probably are already caught up and you know exactly who he is and what's going on. But I'm not, because I'm not on TikTok and I'm not 17 and I couldn't give a frog's fat ass about any of that stuff. So, but I obviously am very aware of Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson of the old, not Mike Tyson now. And so, I watched the fight like everybody else did. I actually watched a lot of the prelims that were free on YouTube. And then I watched, the undercards and, the fight between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, I think her name is Serrano. Amazing fight. I mean, regardless of whatever your thoughts are on, headbutting and, whatever. And I do think Amanda Serrano's manager in her corner, I understand that he's defending his fighter is probably how he sees it, but like, shut the fuck up. Just shut up, take it down a notch. Very unprofessional. You can think that, and you can say that in a post press conference, and you can say that, but to say that right there in the ring, it's unprofessional, right? You know what I mean? But it doesn't surprise me because he seems like the kind of douchebag that would say something like that. But anyway, so the thing is, so I mean, great fight, right? Great fight, best fight of the night as far as I'm concerned. And it's taken me a while. So, in comes the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight. And of course you have those. It's really fascinating because there's a lot of wheels that are turning here. You have the fight is being aired on Netflix, which is interesting. And let me also say that, look, yes, it's shitty that some people had some issues with Netflix. Netflix would freeze or, hang on a sec here. Netflix would, hang on a sec here. Sorry about that. I didn't realize something was going on there. Netflix, I heard something else in my head. Netflix would freeze and, it would spin and that happened to me a couple of times. All I did was exited out. I didn't even get rid of the app exit out of the app. I just exited out of the stream, waited 5 seconds, hit play, and I was fine again. But here's the thing on that. Like yes, it's frustrating. I get it. But all these people cancel Netflix. Listen, the vast majority of you that were watching this fight already paid for Netflix anyway. So you're watching the fight for free. It's not pay-per-view where you've dished out $99.99 to watch the fight on HBO or something, and all of a sudden, the transmission is garbage, and you're like, what the hell, man? I paid $100. You paid absolutely all for that fight because it's included in your Netflix subscription. Now, were there some people out there that maybe signed up to Netflix specifically for the fight? Maybe. Okay. We know that 60 million households, not 60 million people, 60 million households, that could be double that in terms of people, tuned into the fight. So if you didn't have Netflix, you probably know somebody who does. So you probably went over to their house to watch the fight. So all this cancel Netflix you're not canceling shit. You are canceling nothing. You want to know why? Because you want to watch Cobra Kai and you want to watch season 5 of Stranger Things, and you want to watch Squid Game, and you want to watch that documentary on this, and you're not canceling nothing. Shut up with the hyperbolic, melodramatic. I mean, you didn't pay for it. It's free. It's included in your fucking $15 a month to Netflix or whatever the hell tier you have. Anyways, I just found that cancel Netflix. What is that fucking trending for? Cancel Netflix? Yeah, I get it's frustrating. I totally get it. Oh, that sucks, man. Come on, Netflix. Come on. Netflix, come on. Geez, get that worked out. Totally get it. Cancel Netflix? You ain't canceling shit. There isn't one single person, unless they specifically signed up for Netflix just to watch the fight because they're one of those people that just doesn't have a streaming service at all. If you're somebody that just has Netflix because you watch Netflix, you didn't cancel shit. So shut up. Anyway, so there's that I want to get out of the way. I just think it's just ridiculous. Cancel Netflix. I wasn't sitting there going, I'm going to cancel Netflix. No, I'm like, okay, well, that sucks. Anyway, on to Cobra Kai. I mean, shut up. I just got to say that because I don't, it's just so melodramatic. It's nonsense. Cancel Netflix, please. The fight's free. Cancel it. Anyway, so there's that part of it. The broadcast, the broadcast wasn't that great. And what the hell is Rosie Perez? I don't have anything against Rosie Perez. And I know that apparently she's a big boxing fan. Okay. But I mean, guys, come on. I don't know if this was just who knows? But I didn't find her particularly, and this is not the fact that she's a woman before I get called out with that nonsense. I couldn't give a frog's fat ass who it was. I just didn't think she was that good, to be honest with you. So anyway, so there was that. I didn't think the presentation was that great. Not awful. I mean, I know there's some people that said it was absolute garbage. No, I don't think it's garbage. I mean, this is Netflix's first live event of this magnitude into sports. I mean, as far as firsts go, I think it went off pretty well. They had some hiccups. Evander Holyfield's earpiece was not working and he couldn't fucking hear anything, and he looked like he was probably high on whatever, and that's why he had his sunglasses on. And Lennox Lewis had to be like, did you know though? I mean, yes, it was a little awkward and, whatever. And, there was some hiccups for sure. But all things considered, it could have been worse. It could have been better, but it could have been worse. So the broadcast at the end of the day, yeah, it wasn't great, but I wasn't like completely turned off by it. I just was like, okay, it's Netflix. It's not ESPN, right? So they're not as polished. And so there's that. And like I said, my favorite fight of the night was Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. Fantastic fight. I mean, Jesus, they beat the hell out of each other. And, if you want to know, do I think Katie won? Listen, I'm not a boxing expert, but I do know, like I said on my pre-recorded video the other day, I do know enough about what they call the sweet science to be able to follow along and make an informed assessment. And I will say that I do think it's possible that, yes, she won. Because it's not just how many punches you throw, it's whether they connect and how well they connect, where they connect. Like there's a lot of, it's not just you know what I mean? And so Katie she connected, I think, a lot more cleanly than Amanda did. Now that in and of itself doesn't mean that Amanda lost. I'm just saying that I think there is an argument to be made if you absolutely know what you're talking about. And I don't profess to be an expert, but if you do, and there are some boxing experts that say, yeah, no, Katie won. And there's others that may disagree. But I think if you know what you're talking about, then there's an argument to be made. One of the things was sports. And if you're a sports fan, you'll know this. And, and it's like this with making movies and entertainment. It's like this really with anything, is that there are too many people out there that have absolutely, unequivocally no idea what they're talking about, right? They're casual fans. There are so many people that were watching boxing for the very first time in their entire lives Friday night. They know what boxing is. They might have seen a highlight, here or there in their lives, but they've never watched one single fight from round 1 to round 12, top to bottom in their entire lives. And all of a sudden they're experts. Just like anything in life, they shoot from the hip. They're responding from an emotional standpoint. And of course, they're glomming on to what everybody says online and all that kind of stuff. Sound familiar? We deal with that here in the movie sphere, don't we? Right? There's so many people that just don't know what the hell they're talking about. And you get that in sports, right? You get that in sports. And boxing is not just two people standing in a ring slugging each other. They call it the sweet science for a variety of reasons. There's a lot of technical aspects to it and things that, again, just because you throw a punch doesn't mean that's a point, right? And there are people out there that would think that is the point I'm trying to make. And so, you get your armchair Monday morning, all of a sudden I'm a boxing expert, or all of a sudden I'm a hockey expert, or all of a sudden I'm a football expert, or all of a sudden I'm a politics expert, or all of a sudden I'm an expert in how movies are made, or all of a sudden I'm it happens all the time because there are, people just shooting from the hip and whatever the case is. So I noticed that. I noticed that as well. And I don't profess to be a boxing expert, but I know enough to be able to follow along and understand what's going on and understand, that kind of thing, right? But there are a lot of people that don't know what's going on. And they just think it's boom, 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 boom. Well, that person looked like they won. They should have won. Do you know how many times it can look like somebody should have won the fight and they just didn't? And rightly so they didn't. You know what I mean? And but if you don't know your ass from your elbow when it comes to boxing, yeah, it may look like person A won over person B because you're judging it from a completely different, ill-informed, ignorant mindset, right? Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But I'm just saying that I noticed that with this whole thing as well, because obviously most people who like Jake Paul, most people don't know a fucking thing about boxing. They don't think about boxing. They followed him on Vine. They followed him over to YouTube. They just like his good. And now he's doing boxing, so they're just following along. They don't know what the hell is going on. They don't even know who Mike Tyson is. They have no idea. To them, it's some old guy that stands in the middle of the ring and gets punched in the face. They have no idea. Absolutely no idea. And so, there's that aspect to it. And so if you're just tuning in, I'm just going over sort of all my now that it's been a couple of days, I did do a pre-recorded video on my channel with my first thoughts on it. But now that it's been a couple of days, I wanted to kind of get it out there and sort of, now that it's marinated a bit, and sort of my thoughts on the whole kind of thing. And look, do I think it's actually a good idea from a business perspective that Netflix gets into live sports? Yes, I do. I think it makes sense. I mean, they got the WWE coming in January. This is not going to be the last time we see some sort of live event. Will it be a regular thing? Like all of a sudden Netflix signs this multi-billion-dollar deal with, the NFL, and now Monday Night Football is always on, Netflix? Who knows? I have no idea if it's going to get to that point, but certainly this Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight is not going to be the last big epic thing they do in the world of sports. The problem is this isn't just sports. This is entertainment. This is riding the line between sports and the WWE. And that's a bit of a problem because Jake Paul, he's his own talk about a potential conflict of interest. His own promotional company is putting on the event, right? I mean, it's kind of weird in some ways, like it's kind of. I mean, maybe that's happened, but it doesn't that feel weird? Like his own, and listen, you have to give credit where credit is due, right? I mean, they spent millions and millions of dollars and gave, they put the undercard and the co-main event and the prelims. I mean, all great stuff. And so, there's good things in there, right? Nothing is black and white. But he's a showman. He's about making money. He wants to make as much money as possible. And do you think when Mike Tyson beat Michael Spinks in 1988, he left and he said, "Hey, how many pay-per-views did we sell on that?" You think Michael Spinks left going, "How many pay-per-views did we sell?" They don't give a fuck. They didn't care. They didn't care about. They're not thinking like that. Right? It was a very different era and a very different time. But Jake Paul, all he cares about is the showmanship, right? The show of it, the theatrics of it, right? And there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself. But the dichotomy here is, and he has said it point blank, that, listen, I love it when people hate me. I stir the pot. I'm antagonistic. I like to play the villain. Well, all that is great. That's fine for WWE. And really, at the end of the day, that's where Logan Paul is kind of there, but that's where Jake Paul should be. I'm actually surprised. I'm surprised. Well, I guess I'm not surprised because obviously there's money. Okay, fair. I'll walk that back. But I could totally see him being in the WWE. Now, he wouldn't have the creative control he has with his own promotional company, MVP Promotions. Or MVP, Most Valuable Promotions. He wouldn't have the creative control that he has now in the WWE, of course, because he would, he's not part of the creative team, unless somehow MVP and whatever the company is that now owns WWE, they, you know what I'm saying? Then maybe. But this is not a boxing match. This was a circus, and so I don't take Jake Paul any more seriously now as a fighter than I did 3 days ago or 4 days ago or a week ago or a month ago. I just don't. I don't, again, it's part show and it's hard to tell, and this is designed on purpose, right? Because this is how WWE is done, right? And, when Jake Paul comes back into the dressing room after the Mike Tyson fight, right? He walks into the room. there's a video of this. And he walks into the room. His parents are there. His friends are there. Everybody's cheering, right? He walks into the dressing room and you see, woo! All right, yeah! And he walks and he's like, and all right, Jay, you did it, buddy. You did it. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this. I'm thinking, you did it. You did it. Now, if this was real and it wasn't rigged, okay, and we'll talk about that in a moment, you did it. Well, what did you do? Like, if you really think about it, what did he do? He beat a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. Okay. But is this really something to celebrate? Like, this is what I find so interesting with no skin in the game. I'm not a Jake Paul fan. I guess you could say I'm a Mike Tyson fan, so I guess I have a little bit of skin, but I'm not like, I'm not delusional. Right? In thinking that Mike Tyson was going to walk in there and kill Jake Paul like it's 1987. So I don't really have any skin in the game. I'm watching it from an objective point of view, and I'm thinking, what part of this is I don't, and then I'm watching him talk on his podcast after the fact, and he's like, yeah, I did go easy on him, but, I did it. And his parents are like, you did it, you did. I'm paraphrasing, right? But it's like, he did it. He did what? He made $40 million. Sure. Okay. I mean, after taxes, after paying his team, he may walk away with about 15. He may walk away with 10 or 15, because with 40 million, the government's going to take half of that. And then he's got to pay his team. He's got to pay his, so he's not actually walking, depending if he's getting it from somewhere else. Like Mike Tyson's not going to walk away with 20 million. He's going to walk away with maybe 5, 7, 8 million maybe, because obviously the government's going to take half of that, and then he's going to have to pay his team and, all that kind of stuff. So, but nonetheless, I digress. So it's one of those things where I just kind of laugh and I think, you did it. You're like, it's like, is this, what part of this is, this has to be fake. He can't like, and if he really is sitting there on his couch, on his podcast, because he comes across as authentic and sort of humble about it, like, yeah, I did it, and, such an honor. And I'm thinking, an honor? That's like me kicking the shit out of your 7-year-old and sitting on my couch going, and walking back in and all of you going, woo! All right, McRae! I'm like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Like, is that anything to be proud of? Is that anything to, like, what is this? Like, Jake Paul can't actually think that if this was 1987, that he would have stood any chance against Mike Tyson. And that's not rose-colored glasses. I'm Generation X. I'm 45. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm old. No, it's somebody who was there. It's somebody that, that looks at Jake Paul as a fighter and says, yeah, he's okay. He's not great. He's okay. He's learned a lot. He's better than he was a few years ago, which naturally, if you have a little bit of talent and you stick with it and you train and you're going to get better. I don't know what his threshold is, but he's not great. He's not nearly as great as he seems to think he is, and his team seems to think he is, and his mom and dad seems to think he is. I mean, his mom, granted, this is his mom, and I get it. All moms think their children are great. His mom was like, well, you're the new baddest man on the planet now. But you can't take that claim from beating a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. And did you beat him? We're going to talk about that in a second. But it's like, this is so weird. It's so strange, because this, to me, it's very clear to me as an objective observer, it's just a show. It's WWE. It's all WWE. Now, I'm not saying the fight was rigged in the sense of there was a script. Don't come at me with this script apparently leaked online. It's nonsense. What I'm saying is that this is really, he doesn't really care. He doesn't really care. And maybe you already know this because you follow him, okay? But this is somebody who didn't know who Jake Paul was until like 2 years ago. So this is somebody who's just really looking at an objective observer, he doesn't care about authenticity, because if he really did, if he actually did, right? Remember, if you want to be the best, you have to beat the best, or at the very least, fight the best. You don't necessarily have to beat them, although that is a criteria, but you have to step into the ring with the best, right? And depending on how the fight goes, you know, you might not be considered the best, but you could be considered like one of the best, like Mike Tyson, right? Mike Tyson is not, although some people would argue this, Mike Tyson is not the best heavyweight to ever live. Mike Tyson is not the best boxer of all time, but it is safe to say he is one of the best to ever do it. He is one of the best boxers of all time. And certainly a category that he has really locked up is one of the most feared, actually probably the most feared, certainly of his generation, up until, of course, the Douglas fight. But there was a lock of time there where he was the most feared, revered, intimidating boxer in history. And that's something that is probably solely his. Now, you can go back to Ernie Shavers. You can go back to, you know, Joe Louis and Joe Frazier. And, you know, there are other intimidating boxers with big punches. And he is definitely up there in that, you know, regard. And you know, a Mike Tyson fight way back in the day, it was Jake Paul, like, watching Jake Paul box, and I've watched him against Tommy Fury, I watched him against Nate Diaz, I watched him against Anderson Silva, I watched him against Tyson, obviously. He's okay. He's an average boxer in this sphere, but he's average against another average boxer in Tommy Fury. He's average against aging, retiring MMA fighters that are not boxers. They've practiced boxing as part of their repertoire and part of their Rolodex of tools, but they're mixed martial artists, so they're not boxers. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I look at him and I'm thinking he's okay. Like, he's average. This Jake Paul, 2024, if he had just go and watch a Mike Tyson fight from 1985, 1986, 1987, 1988, 1989, even after he lost to Douglas, go watch his first fight back with Henry Tillman, I think his name was. Go watch his fight with Tillman. Go watch his two fights with Razor Ruddock. I mean, it's laughable to me. It's just ridiculous to me that Jake Paul seems to think that he would stand a hope in hell against that Mike Tyson. It just wouldn't, or a Lennox Lewis, or an Evander Holyfield, or like, I mean, it's like, what are we doing here? Now, again, is he saying that because it's part of the show and he doesn't really believe it? Or does he really believe it? I just find it that there's this aura that he's beat Mike Tyson, and you haven't beat Mike Tyson. You didn't. I mean, listen, train me for, you know, a year. I could go in there and maybe not do too bad. I don't know. You know what I mean? No, obviously I'm being facetious, but the point I'm making is that Mike Tyson's 58. If you watch Mike Tyson in the 80s and you watch how quickly he comes out of the corner against guys that were like that are similar, obviously way better boxers than, you know, Jake Paul, but similar in terms of like dancing around. If you watch how fast Tyson closes that gap, now for you non-boxing fans out there, what that means is how quickly he can go from here to here to here, right? How quickly he can close that gap in between himself when there's dancing around, right? How quickly, and combinations. One of the things that Holyfield said too years ago when he was asked about Mike Tyson's power, he said, yeah, he had power for sure. But he said, and most people agree with, even Buster Douglas said this. Most people agree. Yeah, look, listen, Mike Tyson, no doubt will go down as one of the most powerful boxers in terms of his punch of all time, for sure. Everybody knows it. Everybody agrees with that. But there's that extra layer that made Mike Tyson, because you could have a great punch, and if that's all Mike Tyson had, then he might not be Mike Tyson. But even the people he fought, like Lennox Lewis even said this too. He said what made Mike special and really scary, and you had to be really careful, was not just his punching power. It was how fast he was, how fast he could get off combinations. Boom, boom, boom. Because most people go, boom, boom. Tyson could lay off like 3 or 4 shots in like a second and a half. And it's the punch you don't see, like those amazing uppercuts. And you see in those highlights that just people are like, I didn't fucking see it coming. He was so fast because he was only 5'10", because he was smaller and he loved being, on the inside. And the power didn't just come from Jake Paul said, no, I didn't really feel his power at all. I didn't feel his power. It's because, I got a pretty good chin. No, it's not because you have a good chin. And by the way, shave your fucking beard off. Is there a rule against how big and thick beards can be? Because that adds a bit of cushion, right? That adds a bit of cushion. And I'm how big and thick can a beard be? Is that an advantage? Because if you went clean shaven, maybe, not having that extra cushion there, would that make a difference? I don't know. But not only did Mike Tyson not really get in, no, not at all. He only got 18 punches off the entire fight or landed only 18, I believe, through like 70 something. Just dreadful. But you can't sit in, on your podcast and say, I've got a great chin, Mike Tyson's power. It wasn't that bad at all. He's 58. And you know where his power comes from? And in a lot of cases, is from his legs. Look how thick, even today, but look how thick Tyson's legs were way back in the day. He would fight inside and he would get low. And he would come up, and all that power coming from his legs to come through. Anybody knows this. I mean, if you work out, if you play like hockey, if you play football. I played hockey for 13 years and I ran and I still run. My legs, I have very stocky legs, and my legs used to help me immensely in hockey, being, pushing off and skating faster than most kids my age. And, power, there's a lot of power that comes from the legs. And so, not that he didn't have a strong upper body, of course he did, but it's those legs and that power. Tyson didn't get any combinations off. Those combinations that we saw him, reeling out in his training videos, he didn't get not one. There was not one moment where he had Jake Paul in the corner where it was bop, bop, bop. Even if it wasn't as fast, there was no combinations that were thrown at all. None. Zero. Zilch. There was a couple of times where Tyson was just standing in the middle of the ring, like somebody had put down, the PlayStation controller, and he's just there and he's going like this, and somebody needed to pick up the PlayStation controller and move the stick forward so Tyson could go forward. That's what it was like. It was like a video game and somebody had put it down. It's like, what's going on here? Somebody pick up the controller and move Tyson forward, please, because the other guy is already moving the controller. It felt like that. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, Dave, because it was rigged. Look, obviously I have no evidence to suggest that 100% it was not rigged. But when you say rigged, there's a whole lot of weight that comes with that. If it was rigged, I put rigged in quotations because I don't necessarily think it was rigged. Perhaps maybe there was some sort of an agreement that we carry the distance because we get paid more if it goes the distance, or something or maybe there was like, hey, don't punch me in the head because I'm 58. Okay, I'll be careful, even though we punched him in the face, but just go easy. And maybe there was a little bit of that, which is, you could use the word rigged if you want to, but then it just becomes really a sparring match at the end of the day. I don't know. But what I will say is that I just am like, how can anybody take him seriously? Like, I don't understand. Like, I no, you can't take it. He's just a showman. I guarantee you his next boxing match will probably not be against a legitimate contender either, because he doesn't really care about that. Anybody that would go up against a 58-year-old Mike Tyson and be proud of it, and somehow have this proud, euphoric feeling like, wow, I beat Mike Tyson. What is that even at 58? I mean, if this was 1987, because Tyson was an elite boxer, the best in the world, one of the greatest to have ever done it, if this was 87, this average hillbilly boxer named Jake Paul, I only say that because of the beard, but this hillbilly boxer, Jake Paul, probably would have been knocked out in the first round. If you watch those early fights, Tyson coming right out of the corner, bop, 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 back inside, bop, bop, like, Paul would not have known what hit him, no pun intended. He wouldn't have known. He would, because he's yet to face somebody like that. He wouldn't have known what to do. There was even one moment in the first round, where Tyson got off a couple little shots and Paul was a little bit like, he hadn't faced that before, right? Because of the style that Mike Tyson has, the peekaboo right out of the gate style. And you could say that, well, but that style will tire you out. Well, it will. Yes, if you're 58, but if you're 21, 22, 23, if you're the heavyweight champion of the world and one of the greatest boxers of all time, and it's 1987, Tyson has gone the distance before. I know he was known for his first round knockouts, but he's gone the distance before and had great fights. Watch the fight with Tony Tucker. It's a fucking great fight. They're pounding each other. Tyson didn't look tired by the 8th or 9th round. He's still going, bah, 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 bah. Like, I mean, because he was young and he was young. He was a kid, so I just find this whole thing about how it's just silly to me. I just sit back and I think, this is just silly. It's just a show. It's just nothing. To walk away, like he's got to know if it's real. He's got to know. There's got to be. I just don't understand how you could be proud of it. I wouldn't even be proud of it on my record, But he doesn't care. I mean, he's there. It's a completely different world that you're operating in, right? It's a completely different world when you're that rich and you have that much money. It's a completely different world. They don't care about that kind of stuff. He doesn't care. But at the end of the day, yeah, if you want to be taken seriously, if you really want to be taken seriously, you've got to fight serious contenders, serious boxers that do this all the time. Don't now go fight Lewis, go fight Holyfield. Lennox Lewis said on the show the other night, he was asked, do you think you might want to come back and box? And he gave a really great answer. He said, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, well, no, he says, but even if I wanted to, it would probably take me about 3 years. I would need to train for 3 years before I even had a fight because of how much I've lost. And that's actually, he's probably right. Maybe even more than that. And he's still not going to get back what he had 25 years ago. He's not going to be the Lewis of the 90s. He's not going to be the Lewis of the early 2000s. He's 60. He's older than Tyson. He's 59. He's 60. I mean, he's not like, he might get some of it back, but he's 60 years old. Right? Tyson was smoking weed and doing mushrooms and drinking alcohol and just living the life and hotboxing on his podcast and out of shape. And then he had that hospital scare in June with his ulcer and he was only training for like a few months, and it's like, but I will say this, having said all that and going on my rant about sort of now that everything is settled and kind of what I see, I will say that I'm surprised, and I said this on my pre-recorded video the other day, I am surprised that Tyson didn't get off some combinations. I don't doubt that he was tired. I don't doubt that, he's 58, right? I totally get it. But there were times, and I know enough about boxing. I'm not an expert, but I know enough about boxing to be able to know this. There were times when Tyson, listen, call me crazy, but there were times where Tyson may have had Jake in serious trouble and he didn't capitalize on it. And if this was 1987, that's what I mean by if this was 87 or 88 or 89 or 86 or 85, or even 1995, Jake Paul may have been knocked out in the first round. And that's not me saying that as somebody who doesn't know about boxing and who's just, jumping on the hype train of Tyson and his mystique because there's a lot of people that kind of know about his mystique and the name Mike Tyson and just glom on to the buzzwords. Oh yeah, he would have knocked him out in the first round, but don't really know what they're talking about. They just say that as a thing to say. I'm saying it from somebody who has followed him his whole career. Again, like I said, my dad was one of the top sports journalists in the country back then. He would cover the Mike Tyson fights. He was at the Spinks fight in '88. I remember hearing all the stories. I had the program from the Spinks fight. My dad would take me to boxing gyms. I remember punching a boxing bag. It was a lot of fun. I actually thought about it at one time, getting into boxing when I was a teenager. I never did, but I think I probably would have been pretty good. I think I would have been pretty good because I got into working out and all that kind of stuff was for hockey, but I got into working out. I was in really great shape, and I thought about it at one time, but never did. But anyway, so I'm familiar enough with Mike Tyson and his story and boxing enough. Again, I'm not an expert, but I'm familiar with it enough to know that when I'm watching the fight, I'm going, even a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, this is the first round here. So he's not gassed yet. I'm watching this, I'm going, it does feel like he's holding back. Not holding back because he's Mike Tyson. It would be any boxer. I'm like, especially because he's Mike Tyson, his style, but there's just moments where he's like, bah, 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 and then he kind of just, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, this is a kid that is, he totally could have had him. Totally could have had him. I believe he could have had Paul in trouble. Now, why he didn't, I don't know. Maybe his knee brace, maybe his legs, maybe there was an agreement. I don't know. Now the whole biting of the gloves thing, having him up like this or biting the gloves, again, there are people online going, why was he doing that? That's weird. See, it's a sign. He was biting it so he didn't have, there was this one guy that said he was biting it because of all the aggression and rage he had, and he had to do that to stop himself from beating the shit out of Jake Paul. Okay, no. This is obviously coming from somebody that doesn't know their ass from their elbow about Mike Tyson, that this is just somebody who's glommed onto the Mike Tyson train probably in the last 5 weeks and doesn't know. Mike Tyson has always done this from the beginning. Because I remember when I was a kid in 1987 or 88, I was 9 or 10 years old. And I remember when I had a pair of gloves and my buddy Matthew, who lived next door to me, he would come over and we would pretend I was Mike Tyson. He'd pretend to be Michael Spinks or Bone Crusher Smith or whoever. And I remember doing this in the corner like this and coming in, and I would bite I've seen him do it before. And so it is true when some of the commentators have said he's always done that. It is true that he's always kind of, backed up and done that. It's not because now, could it be because of rage? I don't know, but it's not because he was holding back on Paul. But again, because you're getting so many eyeballs onto this event, you're getting everybody and their uncle and their dog and their pet squirrel that are coming out that have never watched a boxing match in their life, and they're shooting from the hip and saying shit that they don't know what the hell they're talking about. You know what I mean? Like and again, it's like that in every sort of space. But I just find it funny. I'm like, no, if you followed boxing and if you know Mike Tyson, it is true. He has always done that. And so he was doing what he's always done. But why he didn't throw any combinations? Like, when you watch those workout videos of him hitting the pads and the bag, there was none of that. Now, again, yes, it is true. Hitting pads on a target that's not really moving or hitting the bag that's only going back and forth. But yes, of course, that's very different than being in the ring with a real boxer. That's why boxers spar. Of course, it's different. But there was no moment where he didn't do that. There was a couple of moments where he was on the inside and he didn't do that. That's where the Tyson of old, that's where he flourishes, is because he's a short boxer and Jake is a taller boxer. That's where he flourishes. He gets on the inside, the peekaboo, boom, boom, boom. He gets on the inside and boom, boom, boom. It's a combination, right? It's that 3 boom, boom, and then up, or boom to the side to cause the boxer to go like this to cover, right? That's what he does, right? So the boxer will be like this. Mike Tyson hits here. right here on the side, which causes this boxer to go like this, bringing this glove down. Tyson sees the opening and then comes up with the uppercut. That happened a lot. Happened against Frank Bruno. Happened against, what's his name? What happened against, Peter McNeely, which, I mean, that's the whole thing there. But it happened a lot. That was one of the things he did. And there was a moment there where he was on the inside with Paul, just for a moment. I'm like, oh, fuck, he's going to throw that combination. Nope, nothing. Like literally not even nothing. There was literally nothing. He spent more time in the middle. I could understand by round 4 and 5, certainly by round 7. Hey, he's 58, he's gassed. But there was none of that in the first round. He was more aggressive in the first round, which is why he got a couple of nice jabs off, right? There's a couple of still photos, which are great, where you see Tyson's jab hit here, and you see Paul's face like this with the sweat going off. And I'm like, it's too bad Tyson didn't win the fight, because that would have been a great thing. He got off a couple of jabs, but he never followed up. And I think one of the big reasons could have been, again, is that closing of the distance. When you watch Tyson of old, the way how quickly he closes the distance, because he's 21 years old. He's an athlete. Think back to when you were 21, if you're my age, 45 and older, how quickly you can. I was on skates not that long ago, and I'm like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like I can still skate, and I obviously the muscle memory is there. I can skate backwards and do the crossovers and skate, and I can play. I get my ass kicked if I was out on the ice with a bunch of 18 or 19-year-olds. I'd be like, they'd be kicking my ass. Whereas if I was 18, I'd be competitive with them. You know what I mean? So maybe that's part of it. His legs, he tried, but he realizes, fuck, I can't close the distance here, which he would have been able to do way back in the day. Anyways, I know this is a big rant here, but I just needed to get that off my chest but again, there were moments, even in the later rounds, there were moments. I believe there were a few moments, as I said on my pre-recorded vid, I believe there were a few moments in every round that he absolutely could have got those combinations off. Juan Rivera says, disagree, Dave. I've watched Tyson, my father, and I love Tyson's matches. Wouldn't last long enough to see him bite his gloves. Even the Lewis Evander fights, he didn't bite his gloves. I've seen it. I've absolutely seen it. So go back and watch again, because I've seen it. And yes, a lot of his fights didn't last long, but there were a lot of fights that did last. And so I have seen it. So I disagree. With you, because I remember doing it as a kid, and there'd be no reason for you to do it if I didn't see it. I don't know what fights they are specifically. And keep in mind, that the fight is always from up here, right? So that's where you're watching most of the fight. So it can be tricky to see, but I will respectfully disagree, because I remember at 8 years old actually doing that myself, and I remember getting that from him. So it was not something weird. It was not unusual. It was not weird. Not to me. Maybe to you, maybe to others, but not to me. But that's me. And so, but it's one of those things where, I believe there was a moment in every fight, in every round, where he could have thrown combinations, and he just didn't. Why he didn't, I don't know. But for Jake Paul I just don't understand how you can be proud of this. How can you be proud of this, having it on your record? You didn't as far as I'm concerned, yes, technically you beat Mike Tyson. Yes, technically. Yes. But you didn't beat Mike Tyson. You just didn't. Mike Tyson would have destroyed Jake Paul. Guys, it's not even funny. For you that are not old enough, it's not funny. It's not hyperbolic. This is not funny. It would have been an execution. Jake Paul, it's because he's an average boxer now. That doesn't mean he won't become a better boxer or a good boxer maybe later down the road, but he's not going to do it fighting over-the-hill MMA fighters and retired 58-year-old boxers. No matter how great Mike Tyson was, he's not the Mike Tyson from 1986. And so I have no more respect for Jake Paul as a fighter now than I ever have. I just don't. I think he's a clown. I think he's a joke. He's a great businessman. And I guess if all his TikTok and YouTube followers, all his TikTok 25-year-olds think he's great, okay, great. But he's not a serious boxer. And there are boxers out there right now. And if you're a boxer and if you know anything about boxing, you know what I'm saying is true. There are boxers out there right now that train all their lives, that are not big names, that are not on the, that haven't fought for a title yet, that are working, that are of his weight class generally, that are, working their way up, that would absolutely kick the fuck out of Jake Paul. Unknown names you've never heard of that would destroy Jake Paul. It wouldn't even be funny. It wouldn't even be funny because they've trained their entire lives. They understand the sweet science. They understand boxing. They understand the technical aspects of it. They know how to read you. They know how to anticipate. I'm not saying that Jake Paul, hasn't gotten better, but the litmus test isn't Nate Diaz, Anderson Silva, 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and, Tommy Fury. I mean, what is this? I mean, that's like me going up against your 7-year-old, your 14-year-old, your grandmother, and your out-of-shape 65-year-old boss. I mean, what am I, and then what am I doing? What am I doing? I clearly don't want to be a serious boxer, right? Obviously not. Actions speak louder than words. It's not just a saying, it's the truth. Actions speak louder than words. You can say all you want. You can talk all you want. But if you don't follow it up with actions, it means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. And so if Jake Paul wants to live in the WWE world, great. Put on crazy, hey, why don't we have a quarterback fight, a small person? Hey, why don't we have a horse fight a cricket? Hey, good. Be a circus show. Draw it in. Make your millions. But don't ask me to take you seriously as a boxer because you're not. Do I think there's potential that you could be a good boxer? Sure. But the MMA fighters and Tyson aren't the litmus test. Why don't you fight Deontay Wilder? Why don't you fight Tyson Fury? Why don't you fight, who's the heavyweight champ right? You know what I'm saying? He's not interested in becoming a serious boxer. He's interested in making money. Then all power to you. Then say what it is. But unfortunately, his TikTok fans and his 25-year-old fans, they're just as duped as they're just duped into it. They're just they're just as duped. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. But make no mistake about it. 60 million households didn't tune in for you, Jake Paul. And he knows this. He knows this. They tuned in because of Mike Tyson, and they tuned in hoping that he would flatten your ass, and he could have. I do think that 58-year-old Mike Tyson could have flattened Jake Paul. I actually do believe that. But because he's 50, see, a 21-year-old Mike Tyson could flatten you in any round. Now, there's a situation where what am I trying to say? I got distracted by something that popped up on my computer. It was an Adobe thing that popped up. Anyways, maybe I'll think of it. Excuse me. A 21-year-old Mike Tyson could knock you out in every round, right? Now, yes, he did have a lot of first round defeats, or wins, but he did go the distance. He went the distance a few times. He went 11 rounds with Holyfield, and Holyfield got the better of him in that first fight, of course. But it was a good fight. And there were a few moments, there was a few moments in that fight where Tyson had Holyfield too. It was like, oh shit, is this going to be, But Holyfield was such a great technical boxer, right? And was used to going further in rounds than Mike Tyson. But that was a great fight. Holyfield won, but he only won by TKO in the 11th round. And the one knockdown that Holyfield got on Mike Tyson, which was his second knockdown ever, was because Tyson was off balance. Tyson was turning around and Holyfield hit him and he, fell down. Had he been on balance, he may not have fallen down. But that was a great, bout. But yeah, I mean, 2024 Jake Paul would not have beaten a 1980s Mike Tyson. It just wouldn't have happened. It just wouldn't have happened. So this is just, it's all about showmanship. It's WWE. I'm sorry. It is. It's not that the fights before it weren't, but Jake Paul, the stuff he's involved with, but that's how you do it, right? You blend the real with the showmanship. And when you blend the real with the showmanship, it becomes very difficult to decipher what is a lie and what's not. You don't tell, it's like, you don't make everything a lie, because then it becomes clearly that it's all a lie. And you don't make everything real because you can't exploit and make the most money that way necessarily. So it's mixed. It's a mixed bag, right? I mean, obviously the fights before that were real as fuck, but the fight with Paul and Tyson, who knows? There may have been a little bit of work going on there. Who knows? I don't know. But anyway, we'll go over to the chat room now. But Tyson is Jake Paul's not serious. I'm sorry. I don't see him as the next big thing. I don't see him. And listen, he's a contrarian. He kind of reminds me of my father. He knows how to push your buttons. I know how to push your buttons too. But he's one of those people that he knows what gets people riled up. So he says things like, do I actually believe that Jake Paul really does believe that he's the next face of boxing, that he's the king of boxing, that he's the next big thing? Probably not. But he knows that if he says it, it's going to get you all riled up. It's going to get you going, whatever the case is. No, I don't believe that. But I also don't think he's interested in fighting anybody serious. I really don't. And we'll wait and see. I think he's more interested in putting on a show. Like I said, hey, let's have a cricket fight a peacock. Let's have a lion fight, a gorilla. You know what I mean? Like, that's really what he's interested in, because it's entertainment. And people show up. They show up to see the show, the show. It's exploitation. That's what it is. It's exploitation. And it's not an actual fight. When Michael Spinks and Mike Tyson left the ring, they couldn't give a frog's fat ass how many people tuned into HBO to watch their fight. They did not care. You know what I mean? It was business. It was real. It was a fight. Not that there wasn't corruption in boxing. There was major corruption in boxing. But I'm just saying, in terms of the showmanship of it, But anyways, folks, let's jump over to the chat room now and see what all of you are saying. Jump into the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on this. A little bit of a different show today, but I like to change things up a bit. Sometimes I just like to. I just want to give my final thoughts on it, because I did talk about it in a pre-recorded video the other day, which you can check out on my channel. I just finished watching the fight, but I've had a few days to let it marinate, and I just wanted to sort of get this off my chest and whatnot. But it's been an hour now since I've been chatting, so let's jump over to the other to the chat room and see what all you are saying. I know some super chats did come in. Let me just get these. We've got Cody the Zombie, been a member for 12 months, says, hey, Dave, hate to bother you, but you told me to send you a message. Yes, I got it. Buddy. I responded to you. Thank you for the reminder. Cody the Zombie, $1.99, says, fight was about money and bringing attention to Netflix. Well, I agree it was definitely about money. At least that was part of it. I don't think it was necessarily about bringing attention to Netflix. I mean, Netflix is a multi-billion-dollar company, the most successful streaming service in the world, with the most subscribers. They definitely don't need attention. Maybe bringing attention to this particular thing with the potentiality of it being more on Netflix. Sure. Yeah. No, I could see that. The Violator 862 sends in $4.99. Thanks, buddy. Says, did you see the alleged contract which prohibited Mike from knocking out Jake? I did see it. I don't believe it. But hey, I am ready to be proven wrong if it's real. Josh McKenna sends in $19.99, says, I loved your cinematic language video. Thank you. Is cinematic language used in every movie? I'm seeing Wicked on Friday and I want to spot it. It's a different genre from It's Me, Billy. So how much foreshadowing, symbolism, lighting? Yeah, look, Josh, cinematic, yes, it can be used in every movie. It just depends on to what degree, right? You know, cinematic language is more about symbolism and the unconscious sort of, foreshadowing and all that kind of stuff. And it can be used in many different ways. So whether or not Wicked will use it and how they'll use it, I don't know. I have no idea, but it can be a very powerful tool. If you, it can be a very powerful tool if you know what you're doing, for sure. Because you can make your audience feel a certain way and think certain things without them consciously realizing it, because you tap into the subconscious. Fans of Something sends in $5. Thank you. Says, Dave, why do you think Tyson still gets to have a career despite being a convicted rapist? Genuinely curious, kind of shocking in today's climate. Well, I think it's because, it's a good question. So I would say that he is a convicted rapist. That's true. He obviously pled not guilty. And he has, to this day, he has said that he was innocent. And Desiree Washington, I believe, was the woman's name. I have to look up to see what she says about it now. I'm not entirely sure. Do I believe that it's capable that Mike Tyson raped her? Sure. Yeah, I do. Do I think it's also possible that he didn't and she was making it up? Yep, I do think it's possible. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look at the evidence again and all that kind of stuff. But I think, because he pled not guilty, he served his time. And, it was nearly 40, or it was 30 years ago, 32 years ago. I don't know. Sometimes, those things sometimes it can be, I think the mystique and the aura of Mike Tyson and how he's changed his life and what he's done in his life and his transformation as a human being, I think is one that has allowed, not necessarily saying you and everybody, but has allowed people to see the transformation in his life and what he went through and what he was dealing with at that time. Not that there's any excuses if it did happen, if it really did happen, there's no excuse for it. There may have been reasons for it. Maybe he was souped up on cocaine, which obviously he did. Maybe he was souped up on fucking heroin and cocaine. I mean, he said that before the Buster, Douglas fight, he was partying with a bunch of Japanese women doing cocaine in his room before the Douglas fight, the night before. And when he was at that point in his life, nobody said no. Kevin Rooney he fired his manager, Kevin Rooney, after the Michael Spinks fight. It was hell. He was a loose cat. He was out there doing whatever the fuck he want and all that kind of stuff. Again, I'm not making excuses for it, obviously. But there may have been reasons for it. And perhaps, I'm just purely speculating, perhaps because he has changed his life around and he has, done good things and for charity, and, he's gotten clean and I mean like really clean. He's married now with a wife and children and is doing things for his kids and, you see him and of course weed probably helped. I think maybe the general public has sort of this view of Tyson that they, forgive him, I guess, or at least like to see how he's changed. And because it's never happened again, as far as we know, right? Not that he hasn't had some there was a domestic issue he had with, I think not with, a wife, but I think he got into an altercation in 2009 or 10 with a traffic stop or something like that. So, he's always been a interesting figure, but I think it is largely sort of the story that has allowed him to seek forgiveness and be able to, do the things that he's done. And he's never reoffended. And so, I don't know. I'm not sure. That would be my guess. That would be my guess. All right, hang on a sec here. Where are you guys? There you guys are. Okay, let me see. Josh McKenna, $1.99 says, are you familiar with Logan Paul? I know that he's Jake Paul's brother. That's all I know. Another $1.99. Personally, Jake and Logan Paul annoy me. Well, they appear to annoy a lot of people, but they're very rich and they don't care. $5. The judges robbed Serrano of a win, says Kyle. I was disappointed with that. Also, I just got to LA today and spent the afternoon visiting Halloween locations. Very cool, Kyle. Very cool. Yeah, look, I mean, there's certainly an argument to be made that Serrano won the fight. I think there's also an argument that could be made that Katie Taylor won the fight as well. Again, I'm not a boxing expert, but I do know a little bit about boxing, enough to know what's going on. And there were moments where I thought that Katie had the fight. So I'm not surprised by it. I was surprised by it because of the point that was deducted from her. So I thought, oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, I'm not as emotional about it as some. I don't think it was a dominant fight. I don't think Amanda Serrano dominated the fight. It wasn't like, Paul and Tyson, right? Katie's a world champion. She's one of the greatest female boxers of all time. And so she definitely put on a show, and there were moments where she really gave it to Amanda. There's moments where Amanda got hit. It's weird that she says she's not a heavy puncher, because there's moments where Amanda hit her hard on the face clean and nearly spun. That Katie hit Amanda clean on the face and nearly spun Amanda's head around. So maybe she's not that hard of a puncher. I don't know, but she landed some clean ones. So yeah, I'm okay with the decision. I was leaning a little more Amanda as well, just because of how I think Amanda ended the fight more strongly, I think. And sometimes ending the fight a little more, ending the fight more strongly than your opponent sometimes can put you over. And of course the point deduction, but it's not like she was dominating the fight from the get-go. And so I can understand it. I totally get it. I think maybe people feel really emotional about it because they also feel she was robbed in the first fight. And so now I didn't see the first fight, so I'm not sure. Maybe I would feel the same way. Like, yeah, she should have fucking won that fight for sure. I don't know. But this fight, I felt like it could go either way. I was leaning a little more towards Amanda, again, because of how she finished. But the Katie, I wasn't like, what? Like, I wasn't like that. I was like, oh, okay. All right. You know what I mean? But I hope they do a third one. Of course, it's also not Amanda's natural weight class either. She's a featherweight, I believe. All right. I've got all the super chats, I believe. I think I do. I just want to make sure. I think I do. Yeah, I think I do. Alex Shambach says, I'm not all that into boxing, but truthfully do not have much respect for Jake Paul. He embodies that modern bro culture that I think is very harmful to impressionable young men. Yeah, I guess it could be. That's true. I guess it could be for sure. I just think he's inauthentic. I just think he's obviously, look, to do what he's smart and to do what he's done, and he gained a big following, and away you go. Right. But I don't take him seriously as a boxer. I just don't. I don't think he's a serious boxer at all. I'm not saying he doesn't possess skills or that he couldn't be a pretty, a decent boxer, but he hasn't faced any real tests. And the only test that he faced was an average boxer who's better than him in Tommy, Fury, and he lost. So he's just a show. I just feel like it's just it really is just his MVP, his MVP business to me just feels like just a bigger extension of his YouTube channel. This all just feels like a YouTube thing. There's something very inauthentic about that shit that I can't, maybe it's my age. It's like, Mr. Beast, right? You know, when I tried to watch a few, and I know he's in hot water and all that shit right now, but a couple years ago, I tried to watch a few of his videos, and there's just something so inauthentic about it. Maybe it's just, again, I'm 45, right? And so like the quick cuts and the hey, what's going on, everybody? My name's such a, and they're doing all these things. And today we've got these big cars all lined up here. What is it going on? And I'm just like, it's just not me. It's just not, I totally could be like that. Like I could be a host doing that kind of stuff. Hey, everybody, what's going on? You see these cars behind me? We're going to put 500 people in these cars and we're going to, of course, I could host a show like that, no problem. But I can't stand watching shows like that. And it comes across as inauthentic to me when it's kids. I don't know. There's just something about it that I'm just like, this just feels, but I understand that for his generation, for all the kids on their TikToks going, you know, that are lying in bed at night with their, lights out and their parents have gone to bed and they're lying in bed and they're on their TikToks watching Logan Paul and Jake Paul and, Mr. Beast. I get it. I sound like a curmudgeon. I sound like a parent and I'm not even a parent. I get it. I totally get it. But there's something about those videos that it just feels inauthentic. And maybe it's because I know how the sausage is made. Maybe it's because I work in the industry. Maybe it's because I know how everything is set up and I just know, I know how it all works. And maybe that's why I just feel like this is just so, it's fake. I'm not saying there isn't realism to it, but it's a show. It's a show. It's a reality show. And if there's anything we know about reality shows is that they're not very, the reality of the reality shows is very, few and far between. So yeah, I'm just not a fan of that kind of stuff. But again, it's also not my generation, right? You know what I mean? It's not. I mean, I'm 45, I'm not sitting there watching Mr. Beast, so, I do understand that, but I've been talking a lot. Let me see here. Miss anybody? That's what she said. Said, I had a feeling that the fight was rigged when Stone Cold Steve Austin ran down to the ring and hit Jake Paul with a steel chair. That would have been funny. That would have been funny. Brandon Collins, talking to Juan. Darren from Georgetown says, after he left Rooney, he turned from an all-around defensive fighter to no defense and just looking for the kill shots. Tyson could have been one of the greats. Well, you know what, Darren? I do think he's one of the greats. I do. But again, it depends what we're measuring, right? And I don't think he's the greatest of all time, but I do think he is one of the greatest of all time. And I even think his contemporaries would tell you that. His fellow comrades of his era would tell you that. He is one of the greatest of all time. But to your point, could he have been even more so, maybe even the greatest, if he had not left Rooney? Yeah, and had he not been so attracted to that party lifestyle. Mike Tyson lost to Buster Douglas, not because I know Tyson gives credit to Buster Douglas. No, he just thought a better fight than me. He was just really good. He thought a better fight. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah. That's what you say. But Tyson wasn't fighting. Was my dad there for that fight? I can't remember if my dad was there for that fight. He went to quite a few of them. I want to say my dad was there for that fight, but I don't know if he was. I don't know if they sent him to Japan for that. I'm not sure. But anyway, he certainly covered it from here at the very least. But, I remember that. I was 11 years old, almost 11 years old. And I remember him losing and it coming out that, yeah, he was partying the night before, like partying. He was doing cocaine with a bunch of Japanese women in his hotel room with a bunch of people the night before the fight. So he was probably out there because nobody took him seriously. It was Buster Douglas. It was like, here's just going to be a walk in the park. He thought it was going to be a walk in the park and that's why he didn't train. And so Buster Douglas didn't beat Mike Tyson because Buster Douglas was this amazing fighter. Not saying he was a horrible fighter, but he certainly wasn't like Lewis or Holyfield. No, Douglas won because Tyson didn't take him seriously. He didn't take him seriously. And so, there was a point, right after the Spinks fight, not right after, but certainly the Spinks fight is often seen as the pinnacle. And then the couple of fights after that, he's starting that downward trajectory. And to your point, he became less of a defensive fighter. The peekaboo style sort of began to kind of wane a bit. And certainly by the time he was fighting, I mean, it would have been very interesting to see Tyson and Holyfield fight in the early 90s or in the late 80s. Obviously, Lewis was still an amateur and Holyfield was in a lower weight class, and there was this whole thing around that, right? There was, the timing wasn't right, but it would have been interesting to see a Lewis Tyson fight in like 1990 or 88, you know what I mean? Or a Holyfield, because do I think that Tyson could have beaten both Lewis and Holyfield? I do. Do I think that Holyfield and Lewis still could have beaten Tyson as well? Oh yeah, absolutely. But the Tyson in 1996 and 7 is not the same. I'm not taking anything away from Holyfield. The fact that although he was pretty fucking juiced, I think it's pretty well known now that Holyfield was fucking juicing. But that aside, Holyfield is one of the greatest boxers of all time, one of the greatest technical boxers of all time. And I'm not taking anything away from him at all. I mean, he put Mike through the ringer and he did a great job. But it would have been, do I still think that Tyson could have beaten Holyfield, if this was a different Tyson? Yes, for sure. Absolutely. And same with Lewis as well. For sure. Unfortunately, Mike Tyson in 2002 was not Mike Tyson in 1986, right? And that's when Lewis and Tyson fought. So not to take anything away from Lewis, he's one of the greatest of all time, arguably one of the greatest. He only has 2 losses on his record, and he avenged both those losses. So, I mean, and we still, and we didn't get to see, Tyson versus Riddick Bowe, who went undefeated. That would have been amazing. There's a lot of things that, we didn't get to see, but he's certainly one of the greatest and certainly one of the most, if not the most intimidating boxer of all time. And there was good reason for it. But he's 58. And to be proud of beating a 58-year-old Tyson, like I said, is like me stepping into the ring with your 7-year-old. Or me stepping into the ring with your grandfather who's, 86. And I'm proud. I'm proud that I was able to stay away from your grandpa. I'm proud that I carried the fight and just took it the distance. I'm proud of that. That doesn't make any sense. I beat so-and-so. No, you didn't. You didn't. There's always going to be an asterisk there. There has to be. I mean, Jesus Christ, Tyson was, 13 or 14 or no. How old was George Foreman when he beat Moore? 45? 44? Something like that? You know what I mean? Tyson was 60. Anyway, it's crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. All right, we'll go a few more minutes and then we'll call it a day for this show. Scared Straight Production says Tyson should have eaten Jake's ear. Yeah, could you imagine? Did you know in The Hangover, Mike Tyson punched Zach Galifianakis for real with his approval just to say I got hit by Mike Tyson? I did not know that. That's fun. That's funny. Yeah, and Jake Paul, saying that, anyway, I don't need to rehash that. Warren Armour says, I was 19-ish. I remember Don King talking for Tyson. And when I heard Tyson, I thought he had vocal damage from fighting. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, Don King he's a shyster. He was a scam artist. I know that King and Tyson have apparently made amends now, but he was a scam artist. He was a shyster. He was a fraud. Don King was a fraud. Yeah. And had the worst breath imaginable, apparently. For those of you that didn't watch my video the other day, my dad, one of the things I remember my dad saying, whenever he would cover a Mike Tyson fight, he would always say that Don King has the worst breath imaginable. So now whenever I see a picture of Don King or I see, or I hear his name or whatever, I think there's a guy with the worst breath imaginable. It's funny. It's funny. Yeah, Juan Rivera says, man, the 80s and the 90s was the pinnacle of boxing and so many greats. Yeah, there was, well, it's funny. The 80s, I don't know about the 80s because, you know, I get what you're saying though. I get what you're saying, but there was a little bit of that transitional period where, you know, after Ali retired, after Foreman retired, you had Larry Holmes. Are we back? Are we back? Let's see here. Yes, we're back. We're back. Sorry about that, folks. My apologies. It's all right. It's all right. Well, there's not much left in the show now, but I'll stick around for a little bit longer. So, yeah. I don't know what happened. Not sure what happened there. My computer decided to restart. It might have been an update it was doing that I forgot to. Normally when I see there's an update available, I will schedule it for 4 o'clock in the morning when nothing's going on. I think that's what happened. And I forgot to schedule it. And I saw some people saying Netflix had gotten a hold of it. Yeah, that's that. You know what? Yeah, well, I already went on that rant about Netflix and people saying cancel Netflix. Shut up. You're not canceling Netflix. Give me a break. Unless you signed up specifically to watch the event. If you already had Netflix, you're not canceling it because of this. So stupid. Who says that? I'm canceling Netflix. Why? Well, because I was having issues with the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight. Yeah, but don't you watch other things on Netflix? Yeah. So you already pay for Netflix? Yeah. So you didn't pay for this fight? No, I guess not. Well, then why are you canceling Netflix? Because I'm angry and I need to be professionally outraged at something. Fuck. Anyway. Ba-ba-ba-bam. Deedly-dee. Let's see what we got here. Kenny525 says, what happened to two dudes and some bullshit? It's gone, Kenny. It's gone. Just like you. No, it is, no, I'm just kidding. No, I've made this very clear several times that two dudes and some bullshit went on hiatus. I made a post in my community section a couple of months ago that it was coming back. It will be coming back. But obviously, you know, it will be a very different kind of show. It's only going to be about an hour long. We're not going to be doing watch-alongs. Again, that doesn't mean that there won't be certain shows or events where maybe we do that. But generally speaking, it's going to look a bit different. Now, we do have two dudes and some bullshit Indiegogo perks to fulfill. And those perks, those fulfillment perks, is about 5 of them, though I think 5 or 6, those fulfillment shows will look very similar to what the show normally is, an hour and a half, 2 hours long, you know, that kind of thing. But once we get back into a regular, it will look very different. It will look very different. So, yeah, it's just something that, you know, we've done nearly 200 of them, and Tony's very, very, very busy, and he has a life, and this isn't his job. This is not my job. So, to schedule things, we have to take time out of our busy schedules to do it. And sometimes our schedules they don't align. Right? You know what I mean? And he's got a new lady in his life now, and he's very busy with her and doing things and building a life. And so, you know, but he does want to come back. He does want to do some shows. But he said, and I agree with him. He says, look, we've done nearly 200 of these things now. I can't sit there for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Like, this isn't Rogan, you know, like we can't sit there and just talk about this. You know, he says, I don't really want to do that anymore. And I agree with him. It's not something I really want to do either, unless it's a special thing, like big Halloween news has broken or something. You know what I mean? A big shift in some sort of horror. You know what I mean? But generally, just general shows, we want to try and keep them to about an hour. Half hour on a topic, 40 minutes on a topic, 20 minutes, you know, in the Q&A, and then we're out. And I think those types of shows, if we can get them going, and that's the goal, I think we'll be more, you know, we'll want to do them more, and they'll keep them fresh. They'll be fresh and a little more sort of manageable, I think. So it is coming back. There's just been a lot of things that have been, you know, again, the focus right now for me, obviously for many, 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 many months was Billy and getting that all done. And then now we've turned our focus to the perks and getting the perks out there. all the Lynn Griffin ornaments and snow globes and signed photos have been sent out. But like I said, during an update on the campaign today, Canada Post, which is, the big national postal service here in Canada, is on strike at the moment. And so I sent out everything, not all the perks, but the ornaments and the globes and the photos. I sent them out the day before Canada Post went on strike. So there will be a bit of a delay until the strike is resolved, just so everybody knows. Of course, that's out of my hands. I gave that update on the campaign today. So check your spam, check your email. If you are an Indiegogo backer, you should have received that update. There's a link to a news article there as well, all about the strike. So yeah, there's just been a lot that's been going on, and trying to find that time to coordinate our schedules is a bit tricky. So, but we are coming back, but it will be a new revamped show because, we just want to keep things fresh. And, we've talked about everything and anything under the sun too. There's only so many shows we can do. There was one time, it's so funny. There was one time, this guy, I don't know who it was. I remember he reached out to us and he was bitching and moaning. I'm not talking about you, Kenny. I'm not saying you are bitching and moaning. I'm just now, shifted focus to somebody else. But I remember when there was this guy who was bitching and moaning about how he believed we didn't do enough Halloween shows. And I looked at Tony and he looked at me and we're like, not enough Halloween shows. So at that time, maybe we had done like 150 shows or something like that. And I think it was like 74 or 76% of them were Halloween related in some manner, either a watch along or a topic or a theory or a news update or, whatever it was. And I'm like, God, you're not paying attention. You're not paying attention. I remember that being really, of course, he never responded to that because what do you say to that, right? But yeah, it is coming back. It is coming back. But it's just something that, again, there's other things, there's a lot of things on the plate at the moment. So, but our goal, yes, is to bring it back. Exactly, Kenny. Exactly. Good idea. So you won't get burned. Yeah, exactly. Just nice and tight. And then maybe you want to do it every week because it's only an hour, right? But things change, right? I mean, we've done 196 of them, I think. 196. It's a lot. When you think about all the shows we did, all the hours we sat there and talked, all the craziness and the watch-alongs, it's a lot. I've done nearly 300 of these shows. It's a lot of time. Amaducia has been a member for 13 months, says, this fight was a joke, Dave. I normally don't give into conspiracy, but it felt staged. Thoughts? Sorry if you already addressed this. I just hopped onto the channel. I did. So obviously I was talking all about this. I don't think it was necessarily rigged in the way that it was like there was a script and they were rehearsing it. You know what I mean? There may have been a loose sort of agreement, like I won't knock you out because we need to go 8 rounds in order to get this kind of money, or, let's go easy on each other. Or maybe his team said, hey, go out and fight him, but fuck, he's 58, go easy on him. If you see him wearing down, don't try to knock him out. You know what I mean? Like little, like rigged, quote unquote, like that maybe. Sure, I could believe that. I could believe that his corner said, hey, he's 58, let's go out there. Let's see how it goes. If he's really giving it to you, then give it back. But if he doesn't, he's 58. So if his age begins to show, take it easy. If this was a real fight, like it is a real fight, but I mean, if this was, any other fight, that wouldn't happen, right? You would knock the guy out because that's the name of the game. You see him tiring, you knock him out. So I think because of who Mike Tyson is and the respect, rigged in that sense, were there conversations, like things like that? There may have been conversations like that, right? Maybe there was a conversation. I don't know. Was there a conversation for Mike Tyson not to knock out Jake Paul? I feel like it would be more the other way around, because of Tyson's age, but I mean, who knows? Like, I think were there conversations loosely? Sure. Maybe there was. Was there like a written script, like that script that was floating around? I think is bullshit. Like a written script, and they're in there rehearsing. You're going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then round one I'm going to do this, and then no. I don't buy into that at all. I don't buy into that at all because I think that would have been very obvious. I think it was a little more spontaneous than that. But could there have been conversations? Do I think that Jake Paul did go easy on him and just carry him through? I do. Yes. I do think certainly by the fourth or fifth round, if Jake wanted to go in and just start wailing, I think he could have, and he didn't. Does that mean Mike Tyson would not have fought back? No, I think Tyson would have fought back. I'm just surprised that Tyson, there were opportunities, and I think this is what makes people think it was rigged and Tyson was holding back. But you have to remember, he's 58, guys. Anybody who thinks you're going to see 1987 or 1995 or 1999 Mike Tyson, you're fooling yourself. These are people who don't understand boxing. These are people who have never watched a boxing match in their life. These are people who've only heard about the aura and the mystique of Mike Tyson. He's 60 years old. Don't get me wrong. I hope I look that good at 58. I do. He's fucking jacked. I hope I look that good at 58. I hope that I'm that intimidating at 58. We all do. But he's still 58. And so, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think he was holding back. I don't know. Maybe he was. And for what reason? I don't know. Maybe he was holding. But you see, here's my theory, and it's just a theory at the moment. Again, like I said at the beginning of the show today, a 1987 Mike Tyson would have destroyed a 2024 Jake Paul. And that's not me. That's not bandwagon Jake Paul, bandwagon casual fan saying that. That's somebody who was there in the 80s as a young boy. That's somebody who was very up on the know of what was going on because of what my father did. And so Jake Paul would have not died literally, but he would have died. He would have got his ass destroyed. It would not have been funny because of how fast Tyson was. It wasn't just his punching power. It was his speed. It was his speed in combinations. That's what it was. It wasn't just, yes, he was strong. And Lewis and Holyfield and anybody who'd would tell you that. Yeah, he's strong. He's got he's a powerful punch. No doubt about it. Lewis even said, I tried to stay away from his power. You know what I mean? Yes, he's strong, but it's his speed. It was the combinations that he would throw because he was so quick and small. I talked about this earlier in the show, but that's what it was. And so he doesn't have that anymore. He can't close the distance. Again, if the boxer is dancing around the ring, right? If you look at Tyson in the 80s and he's facing an opponent who's dancing around the ring, keeping the distance from Tyson because he wants to be careful, right? Tyson a 21-year-old Tyson, you're 21, you're athletic, you're in your athletic prime, can close that distance like it's nobody's business. Boom, boom, boom. He closes in on you so fast. It doesn't matter. He doesn't get tired because he's 21. He's 21. He doesn't get tired, right? And so if there's any reason why Tyson was holding back, I think that probably had something to do with it. He can't close the distance. It's a boxing term, closing the distance. He can't close that distance as quickly. And if Jake Paul is dancing around, Tyson, he can't, and he's got a bad knee, right? He can't close that distance. He can't get in on the inside, which is what they call it, right? On the inside where Tyson is his most lethal. And Jake Paul, even at 58, wouldn't want Tyson on the inside, right? Even at 58, Paul wouldn't want to have him on the inside in case he is going to throw those combinations, right? And so Paul does the right thing by staying away from him. The problem is that when you're 21 and you try to stay away from Tyson, it doesn't work. It works, but Tyson can counter that because he's young, right? But if you try to stay away from him at 58, it works because he's 58. And so that's why Tyson, again, in the first round, he closed the distance a little bit, right? Tyson, you saw it in that very first round. Tyson came up, right? But he couldn't do that indefinitely in every round. And so I want to believe anyway, that I think that was largely the reason why Tyson was just standing there. Poor guy, man. He's just standing there, and it was hard to watch. It was. He was like a superhero back in the day. It's hard to see, as the old saying goes, not that he was a hero of mine, but there's a saying, it's hard to see your heroes get older, right? And so it's hard to see people like that. It was hard to see Holyfield in the ring, back in 2021 or whatever it was when he got flattened. It's hard to see that. It's hard to see Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones at 80. It's like, he still kind of got it, but you're like, it's hard. It's hard, isn't it? And so I don't think Tyson was necessarily holding back. I mean, maybe he was, maybe there was an agreement, but I think it probably had more to do with the fact that he's 58 and he can't close those distances as fast. So he's just kind of walking up now and, trust me, don't go watch highlights, watch a fight. Just type in Tyson versus Tucker, Tyson versus Bone Crusher Smith, Tyson versus, Tillman, Tyson versus Spinks. That only lasted 91 seconds, so don't watch that. I mean, that's amazing, but watch a fight that goes longer. Tillman actually was only the first round too, but watch like Tyson versus, Bone Crusher Smith, or Tyson versus, for trying to think of the ones that went a bit longer, but he didn't even look as good. I forgot to mention this earlier. He didn't even look as good as he did against Roy Jones Jr. Watch the fight against Roy Jones Jr. He was closing the distance more. He was faster against Roy Jones, and that was only 4 years ago. But then he was also about 15 pounds lighter too, and 4 years younger. And Jones, although he bobbed around a little bit, Jones wasn't moving around like Logan was. He was like Tyson's age. He's a bit younger than Tyson, about 4 years younger, but he was about his age. So, excuse me. So anyway, yeah, I don't think it was rigged in the sense it was all planned like a script like Hollywood. But if were there things that were mentioned like, hey, he's tiring, let's not, yeah, there may have been. And I guess that's rigged. You know what I mean? But I think it had more to do with Tyson just not being able to close those gaps, unfortunately. But if Logan Paul thinks he would have beat a prime Tyson, it's a joke. I can't take you seriously. It's like me saying that's like me saying I would have destroyed Mike Tyson in 1986. Yeah, me. No, I'm sorry. And Jake Paul is bigger than me, stronger than me, younger than me. And I think it's just as much of a joke of him saying that as me saying that. Seriously. It just would not have happened. Tyson's experience, speed, and power would not have happened. Not have happened. And so this win against Mike Tyson is it's just a joke. It's just a joke. It's just a joke. Let me see. The Violator 862 says, Stephen, what are you talking about? Not sure. I guess I have to check on Stephen's message. Let me see here. Amadusius, well said. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's just one of those things, where, yeah, it's just one of those things. The horror counselor says, Paul ain't the only dude who went into boxing. His brother did the same thing. He did. Yeah, that's right. Hokey pokey YouTubers who wanted to take their large following to a higher level. It's smart business. But Jake Paul is not a boxer. He could be. He can be. He could be. But I don't take him any more serious now than I did a week ago. He's got to fight serious boxing contenders. But he doesn't because he doesn't want to look bad, I guess. All right, folks, listen, that is going to do it for me for this episode of McRae Live. Thank you for tuning in. A little bit different today, but why not? It's nice to change things up a little bit and, not talk about the same things over and over again and have some fun with it. And, so I really appreciate you tuning in. Thank you to the super chats that came in today. Thank you for being a channel member here, of course. If you want to be a member here on the channel, just hit that join button and become a member. We have our member-only Q&A this Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, so make sure you tune into that. Members on level number 2. I'm also working on our next horror movie nights and our next One Good Scare episode as well. They are coming soon, too. And don't forget, this Thursday at 7 p.m., members-only show, Q&A. I'm giving away 2 signed. Do I have them around here somewhere? No, they're up over there. 2 signed photos of myself as Freddy Krueger and Dylan Zoo Nightmare. So I'll be giving away those to 2 lucky members this Thursday. So anyways, folks, have a great rest of your Monday night. Thanks for tuning in. A little different today, but still a lot of fun. And if you're watching after the fact, jump into the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on anything I had to say here today. And let me know. I'd like to know. That's going to do it for me. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you soon. Cheers.